of Chapter 5 is actually a numeracy lesson. It's a bit disjoint from the rest of the unit, but it is really important that we do this little bit of practice on numeracy. We'll see questions today that will certainly show up on your assignment and will certainly show up on your final exam. So it's really key that if you're not sure, if you're confused, especially after you try it on the assignment, that you get help and we make sure we're really good at this type of problems. Excuse me, not these first few. These first few are just a setup. So essentially we're solving ratio and mostly percent questions. That's where our big focus will be on these percent questions. Okay, that's our focus. This first one though is a ratio, and just reminding what a ratio looks like and such. So, and I think there's questions on your textbook on this where it says, express this ratio, of his 75 kilograms mass, he's got 15 kilograms as fat. Okay, express that in simplest form and fractional form. So simplest form just means ratio. Okay, so this would be the ratio as it's listed in the question. Okay, then the point is to put it into lowest terms. Okay. And as lowest terms, it's like finding lowest terms on a fraction. A ratio and a fraction are exactly the same thing, as you'll see in the next part B. So you find a number that divides in, and you try to get in some, in the lowest terms, and this is where it ends up being 1 to 5. The way that I did it in my head is I said, okay, well, I look at that right away. I know 5 goes into both of those because I have a 5. So 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 goes into 75 15 times. And then there's that ratio. And then I look at that and I say, oh, well, 3 goes into both of those. So 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. So that's how I did it. You could easily do it another way. You probably could say I know 15 goes into 75, and then 15 then is my greatest common factor. But whatever it may be, this is the answer. Okay? Fractional form, essentially we're going to do the exact same thing. Fractional form, if I was going to write that out, would just be, usually you write your numerator as the smaller number, 15 to 75. And that is the fractional form of his ratio, of his mass as a ratio. So fractions have a lot of meaning. They can be a ratio, they can be a divide, and they're all true. They're just all correct. Again, to put this in lowest terms, it's going to be the same, 1 to 5. Okay, for all the same reasons that I said here. Okay, moving on. That hum in the background is my computer, by the way. Okay, so here's an interesting one doing a unit conversion. And, to do a unit conversion, this is a different type of problem, but once you go through it, it's always the same. So we want to, it tells us that there's 12 centimeters and 30 inches. So we're given a ratio of inches to centimeters. So I'm going to write that as a fraction right away. I'm going to say 12 to 30 is my, and probably to be more accurate, I'll include the inch and the centimeters. Okay? They're sort of part of everything. So that's my ratio. It says if you measure your wingspan, and this would be your fingers to fingers with your arms out wide, to be 150, how many inches is that? Well, a way that you could solve that is to take my fraction here, my ratio, and make it equal. It's equal to something, we'll call it x, which is the number of inches, over 150. So essentially I'm saying, let x be my wingspan in inches. Okay, and the way you would solve this, if you look at it, it's just like we did last chapter. Okay, you're going to have to get rid of this fraction. I'm going to get rid of the units too right away, just forget about them. I'm going to rewrite it without the units. So 12 to 30 equals x to 150. You could also do it by inspection, by the way. You could think about it and just figure out what it is. But we're going to do it properly, and that means we've got to get rid of this denominator right here. This is what we want to get rid of to start. We want x by itself. We're going to isolate x by multiplying both sides by 150. So you end up with 12 times 150 over 30 equals x. Put that in your calculator and you can solve that. X equals 60. Okay, so just put 12 times 150 in your calculator, divide that by 30, and you should say then, therefore, whoever my is, wingspan is 60 inches. Okay, so that's doing a unit conversion. All right, percent. Just a quick little one on percent. You score 18 out of 21 on your quiz. Excuse me. What percent score is that? So I don't know if you've done this before when you get a test back or something, what percent did you get? But essentially, to do a percent, it's always the same. You say I got the small number on top, out of on the bottom, the big number on the bottom, multiplied by 100%. Okay? Because if you put this part in your calculator, you're going to get a decimal. So put it in your calculator and you should get 86%, or 86. In your calculator, you don't put the percent in, right? You just put the numbers in, you get 86, and you just know that the end result is a percent. Okay? Similarly, with this question of what percent of Ferd's mass is fat, this is the question where it's kind of the same thing. We did this the first example. Okay, so we know his total mass is 75, so that's going to be my denominator. 15 is fat, so what percent is fat? Well, same thing, 15 out of 75 times 100%. He's what, 20% fat, which is healthy for a male. Girls are usually just above 20%, boys a little bit lower than 20%. So Ferd's a healthy guy. Healthy fat percentage anyway. Okay. Now my pug Charlie, and as you can see looking at the front page, by the way, Charlie's tired now. He's 35%, pugs are a bit fatter. And his mass is 29, so how many pounds fat does he have? Well, essentially, okay, we're going to say X is the pounds fat he has. And then we use the same relationship here. So 15 was Ferd's pound fat. We don't know that. That's X for us, right? The 75 was Ferd's total mass. Well, Charlie's is 29. So I'm going to make an equation that looks just like that. I'm going to say X, right? That's his pounds fat. Here's his total pounds times 100 equals, what is it? 35%. Okay? So now I got to get X by itself. So the very first thing you do, again, is multiply both sides by 29. Get rid of that 29, so times 29 times 29 that works out to 1015, so X times 100. Not very good, by the way, to be using X and multiply beside each other, but it is what it is. Equals 1015. Okay, now get X by itself, divide both sides by 100. Should do this one in your head. And X equals, so old Charlie has 10.15 lbs is the short form for pounds. Okay, so therefore Buddy's got 29 pounds of cute. Okay, moving on. Actually, I might stop right here and I'll start a new lesson with the EQAO type questions, okay? So we'll stop this video and we'll start a new one, a part B, in a moment.